I think it is truly situational to talk about an Argonian build that makes use of water. Sometimes you might be in closed off areas where even if you have a source of water, the enemy might still have a ranged weapon and they might know exactly where you are, and you might not have absolutely the best source of obstacles to protect you. One thing I was going to mention was that in the Sea of Ghost, not only do you have the advantage of obfuscating where you are, maybe with the water, and obviously the melee people can't get you, and the archer cannot continue to arch after a certain distance because they can't follow you into the water and still arch. And their AI is probably just not gonna be bold enough to get right up to the absolute limit of the depth that they're standing in the shallows to attack you. And get that MLG no scope shot on you through water. They will get the no scope MLG shot, but after a certain distance they're not going to go to the absolute best effort to do it. Okay, so it gets better because there are areas where it can be harm, I guess, to you trying to use this strategy, but there's ice caps that cover the water and you can run on them. You can run on those ice caps and just go right under one. And what's an enemy going to do now? Are they going to shoot you with a bow? Is their bow armor penetrating and ice glacial penetration, special ammo? No, they're not, unless they're a Daedra, in which case you don't have much chance anyway, whichever strategy you use, unless you're approaching that Shezarine demigod status. So that's one way to do it. It gets better because if you play the Dragonborn DLC, maybe a little bit with Dawnguard, because the enemy Volkihar castle, if you side with Dawnguard, is completely surrounded by water, so I doubt you could really use it because the final fight typically takes place inside the castle. But that's just something to consider. Dragonborn takes place entirely on an island, surrounded by water, and I think a setting like that, it's a high-level sort of endgame area, you're gonna find enemies more likely to be close to the water, having maybe you have some sort of Dunmer raiders and pirates that want to get you. You could fight them there. At the end of the day, the game isn't really about fighting, because it's not like Fallout 4 where you can just solve all of your character build problems just by fighting more people. I mean, in Fallout 4 you could just literally in a savage way kill thousands of people and get your level up to 200. It's kind of like a unintentional kind of messed up statement, even in a place like the Wasteland. But in Skyrim, the world of the supernatural and making sacrifices to literal demon gods, you don't have such advantage really, just by the rote accumulation of kills giving you XP. You would, in a sense, that you can have legendary ranks that will increase your health eventually, but I tend to think that trying to level yourself up by killing thousands and thousands of enemies, and the reason you're getting levels is because you're getting XP to your skills, not any generalized level XP. You're getting it to your skills, so yeah, you're gonna take a long time, a really incomprehensibly long time, that nobody's gonna sit there to get to level 150 and have a strong build by the sheer, value of their kills. I'm sure there's one guy out there that's gonna do it, or has done it. Getting legendary only with slow growing warrior skills, and in an organic way too, not just absurdly power leveling it at the beginning. In Unbound on Hadvar. So I think in an area like that anyway, it's worth considering this idea of using the water as a strategy to avoid damage. One thing I would like to say, although I do make a dichotomy often between a pure warrior build and a build that might use the enchanting school to augment your ability as far as damage, ultimately, when you use the crafting loop, for example. And then, of course, there's builds where you end up becoming a battle mage, where you do directly incorporate magic. But let's just say, for argument's sake, it is worth noting, aside from the whole loop of increasing your enchanting, increasing your alchemy, then increasing your smithing to get that damage boost, you could gain a lot of damage that way, and it would be easier to do it that way than, say, using your enchanting on weapons, where weapons have like a magic cost. Because the damage is stacking by percentage rather than, additively, whereas you might have a weapon that's got 75 damage and it's got 25 damage fire damage on each hit, and you have to recharge it because it's losing points. What if I told you instead that you could add onto your legendary smithing improved Dragonbone Warhammer the enchantment on your gloves of fortified two-handed and on all the respective parts, and in that way you could double your damage from what it was ultimately, so it's multiplicative, and maybe, who knows, I can't remember the specific statistic, but you can get maybe 500 damage with, an improved Dragonbone Warhammer with a lot of good improvements on it. Maybe not that much, maybe 300 might be more realistic, 250, something like that. But imagine getting 500 because you chose to wear those gloves and you get the bonus to your two-handed damage. What if I told you it gets better and you can use your enchanted items? You can lose their charge. You have to go get soul gems. You have to go buy expensive soul gems just to recharge them. You have to go to Farengar Sacred Fire and deal with his attitude. What if I told you what a lot of you already know, that there's Azura's Star, and then you just find good souls? Like, for example, you might want to find a Mammoth Soul, but they're kind of rare, where you have to fight the giants and fight the mammoths at the same time. Another route people go with a more dark side to them, or ones that like angering incredibly powerful gods, is to take the Black Star, and then any lowly person, you just snuff out their life, snuff out their soul and their destiny. And aside from the ego aspect, you can see where this would get Azura mad, because their fate is consigned to a realm that was never even supposed to be. Even though she's not like an Aedra, obviously she's gonna have some misgivings when she was like the principle of like fate and like prophecy, that prophecy being unraveled by kind of the artificial plot of the ideal masters who ascended and they got power. But that's an option. Anybody lowly that's just some bandit that thought they were going to go to Sovngarde, or you were going to go to Sovngarde, Victory or Sovngarde. No, you can send them right to the Soul Card. What if I told you it gets even better than that? Yeah. Because you can get really high enchanting skill, and you can get, say, 25% damage or skill effectiveness, where it costs 25% less to improve your destruction skill, for example. And guess what this does? This will give you that 25 damage, where if you wear 4 such items that have that effect, now it's going to go down to 25 damage, and it's going to last forever. This even works with Sheogorath Staff Wabajak, so it is an awesome build. It's broken. I like that idea. And as you see, when we use enchantments, we're kind of getting back into the realm of like being a battle mage, but we're a little bit more on the battle side than when we're using auxiliary spells like a spell sword. What if I told you too that it's going to get better because we can do the same thing with alteration and get paralyze, chance to paralyze, or maybe it's just a guaranteed fail to resist paralyze for X amount of seconds, whatever your enchanting can manage. Maybe it's just 3. But imagine you just keep swinging this, and it's costing you nothing for your enchanting charge because you're wearing 4 items that reduce alteration cost by 100%. And now imagine you're just running around while you're going in Draugr dungeons and you're stun lock paralyzing every enemy on Legendary, and it doesn't matter what armor you're wearing. I think you can stop imagining because this is entirely possible. I mean, we see other ways that you break the game. It gets kind of ridiculous because with the Fortify Restoration glitch, you can make easily conjuration spells that theoretically should last longer than a summer or maybe longer than a human lifetime in real life. And you can make paralyzed spells that, unless the game reloads for some type of debugging reason and resets the status of the characters, it should be able to keep them paralyzed forever. So you can do a lot of cool things too with enchanting, and that could be an avenue of improving your damage. And I highly suggest looking into different enchanting effects and the ways that a very high enchanting skill, especially like if it's a magical effect, like I was saying, look into how you can take advantage of having that item never degrade in its enchanting value. So when you're going to have such thing as a weapon that's got improved smithing damage, and then it's got a really powerful enchantment that is going to be game-changing for your whole playstyle, maybe to the point where it just even cheapens it. What's the next avenue that would possibly be fair? You could also poison it. And you can also make potions. If you've maxed out on your enchanting slots and you're playing pretty legit and you've got a good build, and without ever casting a magic spell, you can start fortifying your two-handed on top of everything you've done with your enchantments temporarily. And just, if you have that green thumb perk, you can gather double the ingredients and just mass farm them in places you know they'll spawn. You can look it up where they spawn. Make tons of potions, top quality potions. And this is really going to stack with whatever abilities you have, like Fortify two-handed. And I think without ever casting a magic spell, we really managed to turn the curve on how you can one-shot enemies, maybe not one-shot them, but combine every asset at your disposal to have the best chance of winning, without doing something ridiculous like having to Fortify Restoration your Talos amulet so that you have infinite shouts. You can also just do creative uses of shouts, like become ethereal when you need it. Fus Roda when somebody's chasing after you, so you could stagger them, buy yourself time, and come up with a new solution. Whirlwind sprint to another platform in that moment. I mean, shouts might as well be a form of magic. I'd say they're tonal magic, they're tonal ability, and it's more simpatico with the way that the Psijic nords would be, but it is almost like magic nonetheless with these supernatural powers. But I'd say it's so central to the game that unless you really have a dead set point of minimizing your use of shouts, which I don't see a good point for, you might as well use some of the supernatural powers. I mean, maybe, sure, you want to be like a realistic character, but there are other games that kind of do realistic combat better. So I hope that's an effective strategy if you want to play a nearly pure warrior build, and have a good day.
Still here.